So my journey started 40 years ago in business, and that was at Jaguar Cars, where I was a design engineer. You do realise, Keith, that we're looking for a marriage, not an affair. Going into certain markets is certainly a long-term commitment. The really interesting bit. Exporting those products to more than 70 countries, including China. But it's actually more than language. Of course it's more than language. It's also the cultural understanding. We are now an international company, and that is a totally different mindset.
Welcome Jojo's Cross Borders. Today we interview Keith Jackson, a former CEO for 15 years, leading international trading companies for more than 70 countries. So today he's going to share with us his experience and insights when he's leading the company doing the business with China. All right, Professor Keith Jackson, thank you so much for today coming to my show. And then so today we're going to have the opportunity to hear your professional level, being a CEO for 20 years, and also your academic research as well, to talk about cross-cultural communication competency, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Could you introduce first about who you are and what you do?
It's a pleasure to be here, Jojo. Thank you so much for the invitation. So my journey started 40 years ago in business, and that was at Jaguar Cars, where I was a design engineer.
Yeah.
And after 5 years of going through their management development program, I actually decided that cars weren't quite as interesting as I thought as a teenager.
Jaguar Cars?
Well, they're nice, yes, but the actual work, and actually what I'd been taking a real shine to was medical engineering, medical products, a real strong sense of purpose. So I've spent 35 years in medical products. And because I'm an engineer by profession, I've designed those products, developed those products. I've made those products to very exacting standards and very tight regulatory controls. And then the really interesting bit, exporting those products to more than 70 countries, including China.
Wow, 70 countries,
70.
including China.
Yeah.
But when was that for China? Like 1996? You mentioned that?
Well, my first visit to China was in 1996. It was a short visit. But my first business activity in China didn't come until 2013, when I was invited on to David Cameron's trade mission. And that shifted things because then people started to contact me. You know, you have an interesting profile, you have very interesting products, can we work together? So I struck up a strategic partnership with a medical business that's located in Beijing.
Yeah.
And nurtured that very carefully for probably about 5 years.
Yeah.
Over which time they became the largest domestic brand in the whole of China for their particular product specialty.
But what products?
It was orthopedics. So they were a company that started out making largely Me Too orthopedic products. So these are things like hip replacements, knee replacements, surgical instruments. But over that time, quite naturally, they evolved to making their own designs, and some of those designs were very forward-thinking. So it was a very good partnership with the company I was CEO of at the time, with ambitions to take our products to China because it was synergistic. They could take our products as a premium product, a sort of Western brand, high innovation, as a premium product for their customers. But also part of this became our company, which is located in Sheffield, manufacturing some of their newer lines, so smaller volumes, so they could present to the market that they were a part of an international partnership. So that was a good message. And also the heritage of the British company, British innovation, high quality was another message. But also, I mean, it became a synergy that ultimately led to the Chinese partner buying the UK business. And that happened in 2017,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so very strategic.
Very strategic, like the core things, like British parts as well, like the innovative and high quality, and then traditional as well, right? Classic as well, and then with the international business strategic selling in China, and then become a global reputational companies, right?
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah. Can you share with us your experience and insights? So when you're running these companies cross-borderly, so what is your advice in terms of building the culture that the people work together?
Well, I'm really glad you've mentioned that, because I think that's something that's often overlooked. I think a lot of businesses, almost all businesses, if they're trying to scale, if they're trying to get from small to medium or even from medium to large, international is part of that equation, almost always.
Yeah.
But I think what a lot of people overlook is that it's very easy to identify opportunity and new revenue And most people will understand you might have to make some adjustments in
Yeah.
maybe your product line or the way you market your product or the pricing of
Yeah.
your product. But what's almost always overlooked is the learning that comes from working internationally. It's huge. So that learning of having to adapt to different cultural contexts, different styles of business, different market demands has massive learning for the organization. So harnessing that and that informing your culture. So you have an international mindset, not a company that might happen to be British that wants to export stuff to other countries, sell things, very transactional, not very long term. So I think that embracing that learning that comes with having to navigate different businesses, different competitors, let alone different markets, is massive. It really can be transformational for a company. That's my experience.
Yeah. Can you go in, like using your case study, like the company you work with, like what you're saying, that is a principle, but can you share us about the real challenge, which happens when you run that healthcare medical business between China and UK? Just give us a vivid example in your board meetings and then how you solve that.
Yeah, well, maybe there's a few things, a few anecdotes perhaps that maybe illuminate some of the changes in the transition that we went through. So I think a lot of businesses will have an international supply chain. They'll have partners who provide materials and equipment that you use, and usually for the UK that might be Europe, European Union. But increasingly, global supply chains, it could be elsewhere in the world, particularly as capability increases in lots of places. So that's often the first step to internationalise a business is you're looking at your supply chain. You're looking at people you buy things from, not where you sell to. But then in time, you recognise there might be opportunities. I think that might be opportunistic at first. You might chance encounter at a trade show, etc., etc. And, oh, there's some business to be had, we'll try. But you have to become more strategic. So I think that plays to the culture. And having that international mindset is actually a really strong growth driver. And I think to give you some tangible examples of what that might look like. So let's take your hiring policy, your talent policies. And there's a really palpable example. So I was looking for somebody who was experienced in procurement to sort of manage our supply partners.
Yes, the buy things.
And it came down to 2 candidates who were exceptional, but there wasn't much between them. One happened to be a native Chinese speaker. This is before we had anywhere near China. I thought that could be really interesting.
Native Chinese speaker.
Yeah. And I thought that could be really, really helpful for the organisation in terms of its capabilities.
Yeah.
Think about skills, not just the individuals. But it's actually more than language. Of course, it's more than language. It's also the cultural understanding. So maybe augmenting your team as it grows deliberately with more diverse faces, more diverse backgrounds. And not all diversity can be seen, of course. That's another aspect. But actually different thought processes is hugely powerful as well to shape a really strong culture, a really collaborative and innovative culture.
Right.
So I think that's a really fundamental thing, but there's lots of ways that plays out. Maybe another anecdote, if I may share. So early days of this business relationship with the partner in Beijing, and I use this actually. I use this when I talk about encouraging others to export and go further afield. One of my learnings some time ago was, the importance of relationships in business is unwritten. Everybody knows that, but in some markets it's absolutely critical. And it doesn't matter how wonderful your product is, whether you've got a really favourable pricing, really good marketing. It doesn't matter. What's the most important thing is you nurture carefully that relationship. That is so important.
That relationship with who?
With your partners, with your customers, with their customers. You really have to invest time
as well?
face to face. Your supply chain partners, absolutely. So I'm sitting at a dinner in Beijing. It's early days of this relationship. And the chairman had quite limited English, not uncommon. His finance director had quite good English. So I'm sitting between the two of them.
Yeah.
And he said something, and then his colleague translated and said, "You do realise, Keith, that we're looking for a marriage, not an affair."
Wow.
So something long term, not something transactional, not something frivolous.
That's said by your Chinese
yes,
partner.
Exactly, yeah, and that stuck with me, because I think far too often, and maybe it's a trap that some cultures, not necessarily British, but some cultures might fall into too quickly, which is being too transactional. It's all about the numbers. It's all about delivery. It's all about delivering the commitments in the contracts. And actually, you've got to look way above that, which is actually, if this is something we're doing together, let's see where this journey takes us. And it might be things we haven't even thought about yet. So if we're not quite delivering the numbers, if we're not quite sort of joining up the dots as we need to, well, let's just work on that together and make it better, rather than be critical of one another or maybe put people in a difficult position because they feel uncomfortable. Don't do that. Yeah, actually nurture that relationship like you would if it was a good friend. Yeah. So I think that is a really fundamental thing. Now the challenge is the leader might understand that, and maybe they're the person who's making the most contact with the overseas partners, perhaps, or the sales director, perhaps.
Yes.
But actually is permeating that right through the organization. That's the challenge. So people start to think that way, that this is a long-term, going into certain markets is certainly a long-term commitment. And we also need to think differently. And that's really hard for somebody who hasn't perhaps traveled as extensively as some of us have. Maybe their overseas travel is restricted to holidays in Spain or Greece, for example. So they don't fully appreciate how different some other cultures can be. So I think actually one of the jobs as a leader is creating a culture where it's not only inclusive and diverse, they're both very important things, but actually we have that international mindset. We are sadly, or actually not sadly at all, we, to the T, we are now not a British company. And you'll get some, oh my goodness, but that's why I joined. I like to work for a British company.
Yeah,
So
I
proud.
want to keep this as a British
We're
company.
more than a British company. We are now an international company. And that is a totally different mindset.
I love this. So we are British company,
Yes,
but
that's our
we are
heritage,
more
yeah.
than British company.
Exactly.
We are
our identity
international.
must grow. Our identity must grow.
Yeah, and also what you're saying that when you're nurturing your relationship with your partners, your suppliers, you think about we are looking for a marriage, not an affair.
Yes.
What a vivid.
Long-term, committed, obligations on both sides. Treat each other with respect. Yeah, with friendship, with warmth, all those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it's just a funny questions like when you're in China, have a dinner with your business partners, they give you the horrible Chinese Baijiu. It's our Chinese liquor. Did you drink it?
Oh, far too much of it. Yes.
So far more.
Well, especially in northern China, because it is part of the business culture, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
I quite like Baijiu. Not too much, but I quite like Baijiu. I have had occasions where I've drunk far too much.
But you have to.
But you have to.
I see a lot of my clients, they go into that. No, okay, I just like, that's it.
Yeah.
They stick to who they are, drinking glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine.
Yeah.
But when you really want to know the suppliers, like your business partner in North China, I say, as CEO, you got to drink, right?
Yes, you do. And you can moderate that. So there is a thing that I learned.
Yes.
So taking a more junior colleague with me, so product manager, great guy, he was doing some training for their sales team. I wanted to show a wider face of the company.
Yes.
Yeah, not just me as the CEO, but some other people who would be helpful to our Chinese partner. So he came with me to do some training. Now we got to a dinner at the end of a sales conference, and the whole team were there, with a room in the restaurant, and there was quite a lot of Baijiu. So when I felt I'd had more than my fill, I looked at my colleague who's younger than me.
Yeah.
And maybe, when I was younger, I could probably drink more Baijiu than I can now.
Yeah.
So I delegated the drinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Simple
like that. And also people expect that. Yes. And then also if the people work together with you and then they know you and then they will think about taking this risk to save my boss, but then as your partners, they understand that, that's when I running my own business as a young woman, I even drink. And then to some extent, like I feel like, I can't drink more. So then the way I look at my followers, like my colleagues, that they knows, and then so we're taking turns.
Yes.
And then I'm also help them in as well.
And it's not just the drinking. I think I've been served all kinds of interesting dishes in China, and it would be easy, wouldn't it? And actually, a bit lame to say, well, that's a test. They're trying to make me feel uncomfortable. Give me something that you certainly wouldn't.
Sea cucumber,
duck's tongue.
Yeah.
Fried ants.
Yes.
Yeah, a range of things. Donkey meat,
yeah.
which does taste worse than it smells, I have to say. So all these things, but actually I think the test isn't whether you can sort of stomach the dishes, and some of them are absolutely delicious. The best food I've had in the world has been in China.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
As a British.
As a British, absolutely, yeah. But I think actually the test is, are you open to trying new things? Yeah, are you open to embracing the culture you find yourself in, rather than say, oh, well, where's the fish and chips? Yes?
Yes.
So I think actually if there is a test, it's probably much more likely to be that. Nobody wants you to lose face. Nobody wants you to feel uncomfortable or give you things you can't face eating. But I think maybe that's about mindset. that if I go to Italy, I'm not going to eat French food.
No.
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 Yeah.
Also, when I went to France, I find out they also serve like a pig trotters as well. Yeah.
They do. Yeah. And of course, the dinners are the real business meetings, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's not about talking about details, not talking about arrangements, but actually it's about understanding each other, building trust, building empathy, building friendships as well. The best business relationships usually evolve into some kind of friendship. I mean, friendly, not familiar, but if there is a genuine interest in other people, that relationship's got to be stronger.
But this is so wise. Let me repeat again. So the dinner time is a real time for business without talk about numbers.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, the
yes.
relationship, the nurturing, and the numbers coming next, which is quite easy afterwards, right?
Yeah, well, I think my experience of business meetings in China is quite formal. And one thing that surprised me early on is myself and my British colleagues were on one side of the table.
Yeah.
And my Chinese colleagues were on the other side of the table.
Yes.
And it felt like a very formal interview. Yes.
Who interview who?
Well, probably both, actually, each way. I think that, particularly if you go to some other cultures, Sweden's a great example. Sweden is a very collegiate, collaborative culture. There isn't much hierarchy. So it would be a round table. And actually, you wouldn't think, well, that's where you need to sit and that's where you need to sit because that's respectful. It'd just be sit where you sit.
Yes.
And actually, the teams would be mixed up. So real contrast to something like that. But I think when you go for dinner, and you should always say yes if you're invited to dinner. Yeah. I think if you go to dinner, it's a much more relaxed environment. It's more informal. It's more sort of general conversation, especially with a little bit of Baijiu.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're trying to let your guard down. People want you to let your guard down.
Yeah.
It's a social thing. And I think my learnings are that that's the real meeting because that's about building trust. That's about showing credibility. That's about showing commitment and honouring the relationship and valuing the relationship as something precious.
Yeah.
The business meetings are the detail.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the CEO's presence there is one of a guiding hand.
Yeah.
Not make all the decisions, a guiding hand, and the other colleagues will handle the details.
Handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But when you say that's like the dinner is like an informal one, it's quite relaxed, get to know each other.
Yeah.
So I want to point out one thing, okay, as a CEO. Yes, the tone is informal. But as a CEO, in principle, you need to understand that where you should sit down
Yes.
and when to shake hands, when to make a toast, right?
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because our audience probably they never thought about that way, but you are experienced as CEO doing business in China. So the dinner, what is the underneath under this informal chatting with your business partner?
So that's a really great point, Jojo. So the tone might be informal. It might feel more relaxed. But you're still there representing your company and you need to be professional. So, I mean, there's just a bit of a watch out there, especially when the second bottle of Baijiu arrives at the table.
Don't drink it, second bottle.
Yeah. But you're right, there are protocols that you should respect. So the seating arrangements, so for example, the host will sit facing the door. And then there's a strategic positioning. So you might sit to their right. And the more junior colleagues might sit with their back to the door, for example, the other side of the table. And
Who paid the bill?
And it might always be a round table as well, which is actually, I find really interesting.
Always the round table.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there is protocol that you have to respect. And I think that leads to a bigger question, which is, and it plays to something we've touched on just a moment ago, which is orientating yourself and adapting to different cultural contexts if you're going to be truly successful in international business. Because what works in the UK, you're going to have to change that if you go to the Netherlands, for example. Very different style. Or the North America. Or South Africa. Which sort of there's a little bit of a thread there. They're all quite direct, low context cultures. Yeah? It doesn't mean the cultures are less valuable. Low context means...
It's a low context,
you get what you see.
Yeah, straightforward.
Yes, straightforward.
Yeah.
And actually some people like that.
Like
I think,
American, like
I don't
UK.
have to read the signals. I don't have to read the air in the
Yes.
room, all of that.
Yeah.
I know what people say what they think.
Yeah.
They can be a bit abrupt and a bit direct sometimes, but I know where I stand.
Yeah.
And my learning is the further east you go, and sometimes the further south you go, South Africa being the exception, the cultural context becomes much higher.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on that isn't spoken, including seating arrangements.
Yes.
Yeah, coming back to that, including the toasts and everybody and the ritual of everybody toasting each other. And
Yeah.
in fact, may I? So my Chinese is very limited. I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
My brain is wired for logic, for process,
Chinese is good
for
enough.
numbers. My language skills are quite poor, actually. I'm quite embarrassed about my language skills. I do have a knack of learning a few phrases in about 50 languages, so that can be fun sometimes, at least to show.
Useful tool, though.
Useful tool. But here's the most useful phrase I've learned in Chinese.
What is that?
So you'll understand the dinner situation and the Baijiu situation and the phrase Ganbei.
Ganbei.
Ganbei, which for those who don't know is empty glass. It's down in one, and you can get through a lot of glasses very quickly if you're not careful. So a good friend of mine who spent 25 years living in Beijing, an English guy, taught me another phrase that I could use, and it always raises a smile, and it helps you get out of those difficult situations, particularly when you think the second bottle of Baijiu might be coming to the table, which is Ganbanbei.
Ganbei, yes.
Ganbanbei, yeah. So take a sip or half a glass. So therefore, you're not expected to finish
bottom up.
and it will be immediately replenished, of course.
Yes.
That's what happened.
Yes.
But if you just take a sip, you can make one glass last several toasts.
Yes.
Top tip.
Super, super useful tip. All right, that's so interesting stories. What happened? Why this? Like now you are more academic parts as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about being a professor in LSE and then what you bring, like from the business side to the lecture, and how did you feel like that?
Yeah, so all careers evolve, and I think 40 years in business, always part of my plan was, in the autumn stages of my career. Maybe it's just the end of summer.
No, you're still
end of summer. End of summer. Yeah. End of
like
summer.
now, end of summer.
Thank you. Too kind. It's always summer in my world. Yeah. So I think you think about, well, what's your legacy? How can you share the things that you've learned with others to help them? I think being helpful is a really important value. Just be helpful.
Indeed.
Be kind. Be helpful. So I think part of that is I always envisaged a time when I would be plural. So not one full-time, full-on job. CEO is pretty full-on, whether you're in a small, medium or large business.
I imagine that.
Everything finds you, everything. And but actually to be part-time and plural. So have some different business interests. And I really enjoy the variety. I really enjoy the learnings that might come from one organisation doing something quite different and how you can take the principles, not the detail. You can take those and deploy them to another organisation to help that. So I think that's really, really interesting. But I am a lifelong learner. And so the academic roles came out of both those things, joining those things together. So a lot of universities want to enrich their curriculum. It makes a better experience for the students. It brings the theory to life with lived experiences and stories. And, they just find it much more interesting than more theory. And universities are in competition with other universities. So if they don't do this, somebody else will. So that actually started at the University of Sheffield, where I was invited to come and do some guest lectures for engineering students, perhaps not surprisingly, with maybe a little bit of emphasis on developing medical products. That was really something I could talk a lot about. But then over time that evolved. I got involved in teaching on the executive MBA program, very different topics.
Business school, yeah.
Business school, talking about leadership skills and deliberately shaping organisation culture, which is something a CEO should do.
Yeah.
And then the LSE, that was something that built on some of the things I've been doing around exporting.
Yeah.
I prefer to call it international trade. Exporting sounds too transactional. Taking what you've got and then seeing that some customers out in a different country might buy it from you.
I see what you mean.
Too transactional. International trade. Because it might actually be inbound as well as outbound.
Outbound.
Supply chain.
Yeah. And
It might
trading.
be strategic partnerships. It might be co-creating new products together, using your expertise from two organisations across borders. So international trade. So I think I've been an export champion for the Department of Business and Trade. So my experience exporting to 70 countries, I've gone in and tried to inspire other companies to think more about exporting, either to start or to go to maybe some of the more adventurous markets, I call them, the bigger ones, the more challenging ones. And then maybe that was the connection really with the LSE is, well, experienced exporter, lots of stories to tell about leadership, about navigating different cultural contexts. Let's enrich our program for our postgraduate students with some of those stories, particularly around the harder markets. So markets like China.
Okay.
One of the most, if not the most competitive market in the world, certainly the most dynamic. It changes.
It's so
electric pace.
North and south, everything.
A lot of people miss that. It is really dynamic. So if you don't move quickly, you are so far behind.
Exactly. Yeah.
So again, I guess this is a master. It's usually a masterclass that I would present at LSE, talking about my exporting journey.
Yeah.
with a particular focus around high context markets like China.
Right.
And some real sort of lived experiences and some really good palpable examples, some actionable insights that people can take away and use. But intercultural communication competence really fascinates me, because it's one thing to go and visit places and you do suddenly have a lot more awareness of how things are different, but it's much more different to then go and adapt your style. And isn't this an important facet of leadership? You have to develop situational leadership. It's contextual. So it may be that in a particular situation, let's take some extremes, a crisis, you have to be much more command and control, much more direct to create the emphasis, the action that is needed, because if you don't,
for this crisis,
the problem is bigger. So that's quite a directional style. On the other end, if maybe you're trying to nurture rising talent, and that is actually more mentorship, perhaps. So yes, there are many different situations, but my point is that you have to, as a leader, you can't have one size fits all. You can't have your default. We all have them. You can't have your default. That's not good enough. You have to actually develop contextual leadership, so situational leadership.
Situational leadership.
Now, if you've got that mindset, when you start going to other markets where things work differently, guess what? You can bring that to the fore by adapting your leadership style, by adapting your approach, your communication as well. That's listening as much as it is speaking, of course. So I think the interesting thing about the work at LSE and sharing that with postgraduate students, many of which have actually spent time working in organisations, in companies, in commercial organisations, and often overseas. So they all come with their own lived experiences. So it's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. We're sharing with each other best practice.
Both ways.
Stories, tips, things to avoid, all of that, both ways, exactly. And that's always the best learning, because people feel involved rather than talked to. That's another situational leadership.
Yes.
Of course, So I find that really, really rewarding, because I always learn something, and I'm a lifelong learner. So it makes me a better
inspiring
person. I think so, yes.
Well, I do hope, like, not only helping postgraduates, I do hoping that you're going to run more seminars and then be all coaching, like the CEOs, like outside of the campus, is the real business, like corporations.
It then starts to get a bit real, doesn't it? Because it's not the fundamentals or the principles which you can share with a wider audience, but actually if it's one-to-one, and I do mentor CEOs, that's something.
Brilliant.
If it's one-to-one, then it can be much more, again, contextual. It can be about the challenges either for that CEO and or the organisation. So where is it on its journey? What's the current challenges? What might the future challenges be that they haven't yet seen around the corner? That might be able to identify. You need to think about, because what might happen next is. So I think, that sort of more bespoke, if you like, support is hugely valuable. But I think here's another learning as well, which is, and I maybe was guilty of this earlier in my career, which is we can be a bit defensive, can't we? If we don't like to show.
I'm very defensive. Don't say me not good enough.
Well, we all
we do. We all do. Of course. I mean, it's a psychologically self-protection.
Yes, and I think particularly if you're in a leadership position, there's almost an expectation that you're invincible, you're wonderful, you're amazing, and nobody is.
I'm the man. I'm the woman.
And actually, that might appeal to a certain type of follower, but quite frankly, I don't think it appeals to most followers. Nobody wants to work for the person who knows everything.
Charismatic leadership.
Yes. Exactly, charismatic, and charisma isn't about how you project yourself. It's how about you treat others, how you make other people feel. That's charisma.
Charisma, typical.
Absolutely. So I think, yes, that piece around contextual leadership, changing mindset, evolving your thinking, evolving your approach, so you've got perhaps more tools in your toolbox, that you can pull upon when you need it. I think that's hugely fascinating, and it's a massive value add. But the hesitation is, well, I don't want to show I'm vulnerable. Maybe this person will find out my weaknesses. Maybe they'll highlight them. I'll feel uncomfortable. And I'm supposed to be in charge because I'm the CEO. Well, yes, but actually, what better way to show that you're in charge is that you've still got things to learn, and you're willing to reach out to advisors or experts who can help, not tell you what to do. I'm never going to do that, but maybe help develop your thinking. Maybe cast a different light on something, different perspective, maybe give different options or scenarios to help the thinking to get to the right decision rather than the easiest decision. So I think there's lots of ways in which external advisors, mentors, or non-exec directors on a more longer term basis can really help to advance the organisational knowledge and organisational learning. Massive.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Professor Jackson.
Thank you.
I mean, give us such a vivid stories and then you experience while you do business in the UK and China, 70 other countries indeed.
Yes.
And then your academic journey and also your advising business like for the board members. Thank you so much for today.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.